All right, everybody. I just wanted to make this video because, and you've already seen the title, I cannot stand, and I just heard this the other day. I heard somebody say it sort of flippantly, and it's become a meme. The question of, why do you want to work for this company? I don't want to work for you. I don't want to work for anybody. None of us do. You are paying me. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm anywhere. That's why anybody is anywhere. This notion that, like, what do you think it is? That it's my dream to be button presser number 3 at your corporation? To be a faceless gear in your machine? What is the matter with you? Now, I could blame HR and management, hiring teams, because they deserve it. They deserve an enormous amount of blame and ridicule. However, there's something sort of fundamental at the heart of the question, why do you want to work here? What made you apply to this company? I mean, I know that there's hundreds of thousands of unemployed people and every position gets 500 applications, but why did we stand out to you? What is it about our mission that really speaks to your character? There is this sort of social contract-esque delusion that seems to exist between the employer and the employee in our society, in the United States, and I'm sure elsewhere, that I don't know if our system can exist without this delusion. If we are not all playing this game where we pretend to want to be here and you pretend to want to pay us, without this delusion, I think the whole system comes down. I think if tomorrow, which would be the 17th of February, if tomorrow everyone wakes up and just decides, you know what, I'm going to tell my boss what I think. Obviously, everyone gets fired. But I also don't think that, like, companies can survive that level of honesty. I think most employees in most companies at most positions have to delude themselves and the company as to why they are participating and what the nature of that participation is. And almost all the examples that we get in society of somebody who's truly passionate is either the owner of the business or somebody who's been doing it for so long that they decided years ago that this is what they're doing and this is what they're going to die doing. When you watch a video about some old restaurant that's been there for a gajillion years, and they go into the restaurant, you've already met the owner, right? You're like 30 minutes into this documentary about some fucking barbecue shop in Texas. And they go into the smokehouse, and it's not some young college guy working 14-hour shifts. The 14-hour shifts don't change, but it's like an 85-year-old woman. And they interview her, and she's like, yeah, I started doing this 42 years ago, and I'm still doing it now, and this is where I'm going to die. At some point along those years, she just made an arbitrary decision that this is me. This is what I do. And that decision, I think, is where we misunderstand a great deal of what we perceive as passion. We as young people will look around society and we'll see people who are or are not passionate and everybody along the gradient. And the supermajority of people who we see who are passionate, they are not passionate organically. They're not passionate because they actually care about the thing that they're doing. They have made an arbitrary decision to care, regardless of what they're doing. And this is where I want to bring up Japan. And Japan and Japanese service culture, at least, is my favorite in the world. And I've got a decade of experience in the service industry, so I know what I'm talking about. I managed a multi-million-dollar restaurant. I had a couple dozen employees working under me. hired, fired, and trained staff. When you go to Japan, you'll often have the experience that what you're interacting with is materially the same as what you have in America, but it's such a radical difference in the experience that you have. And while you're over there, you might ask yourself, why is everything in Japan better? And I can't help, and I've only been there a handful of times, I can't help but to conclude that the reason my eggs and rice are so much better in Japan than eggs and rice in America overwhelmingly has to be that the person who made it gave a fuck. I can't come up with any other answer because, again, I haven't lived there for years, but I've been there for months at a time. And everything there is, you'll interact with people who, by American standards, they care too much, which is a fucking crazy thing to say. I agree. I hate to even say that, but again, I'm trying to force Japan through the die of America. And from American perspective, people need an organic reason to care. At least that's the message that's been fed to us, and the lie, going back to the owners and the operators who, have been there decades, like that 85-year-old woman in the smoke pit. She didn't organically care about brisket when she was 20 years old. But when she was like 38, she took this job because maybe this was the only job available. And then she just put her head down and worked for a few decades. And then you're watching her on a documentary where she's like, yeah, I've just been running this smoke pit since 1978. And this is all I know in the world. She made an arbitrary decision. And I guess what I'm trying to get at here is that the arbitrary decision is the more realistic choice. It's simply not realistic to expect yourself to have organic passion. And those people who do have an organic, especially an obsessive passion, those people get filtered out early because those people go and start companies, they create services and products and businesses. Those people are not going to be a significant component to the labor force. The labor force is almost exclusively the people who don't have the idea or the passion or the obsession. And you really need all three. And when you go to Japan, what you're seeing is those same labor force participants, except the difference is they have all made the arbitrary decision that whatever I'm working on right now is the most important thing, period. And I'm going to treat it like that. And you get an aggregated quality that is just unmatched. You get, and it might be just only the tiniest difference, the littlest difference here, the littlest difference there, but then you aggregate that across tens of millions of people, across billions of interactions every day, across countless tiny variables. All of that distills down to the individual's experience when you're walking down the street, you're in Japan, and everything is just shattering your standards of quality, especially coming from America. Shattering standards of quality. Except the organization of the Tokyo Metro. I remember being underground, needing to go from one place to another, looking at the map and being like, how the hell do I get from here to here? And one of the employees came out and I was like, oh, thank God, I need help. I was like, how do I get from here to here? And then the employee did the exact same thing I was doing. Like, that's a good question. How do you get from there? And I was like, you work here. But it's like a spider's web. It's crazy. HR and hiring managers rely on our delusion and they take advantage of it. And Maybe I'll make a whole dedicated video about why I hate HR and middle management so much. I think they're the most worthless humans in society. I don't even believe they should be allowed to vote. I know that's might be extreme, but I think that consistently, and this is pretty much everyone's experience, middle management and HR are filled with people who are incapable of actually being productive. And so they chose positions where they can micromanage, interfere, and have power over the people who are actually meaningful and making a difference and contributing undeniably. And that generates a degree of resentment in me that's maybe even a little bit inappropriate. I don't know. Does anyone else hate HR and middle management as much as I do? It does seem to be pretty universal hatred. But they're like the wasps. And I don't mean white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I mean the things that fly and sting you for no reason, just for fun, little assholes. They need this delusion, the delusion that question is predicated on. Well, what made you want to apply to us? Because the answer, the honest answer, is the only thing you're not allowed to say. And when we exist in a paradigm like this, where the truth is the only thing you're not allowed to say, it's the only wrong answer is the truth, then we live in a fundamentally broken system. And that seems to be going around a lot these days. But that's where I'll leave it. Let me know in the comment section what you think the most dishonest interview question is. Why do you want to work here? As if we don't have bills to pay and families to feed. Oh, and check out my book, Seeking Squalor, on Amazon. Toilet umbrellas and champagne chandeliers. I sort of meant to mention the book like 30 seconds in, but then I forgot. I just got so riled up about HR and middle management. God, I hate them so much. All right, goodbye.